name's Sophie. I've been working on this program now for about a year and a half, and I'm what's called the SRO, which is the Senior Responsible Officer in FCDO for XCEPT. So that means I'm responsible and accountable for the delivery of the program, the way the money is spent, that it has an impact as intended, and all the aspects of delivery, I'm accountable. So yeah, it's very important to me that XCEPT is a program that has great impact and is delivered effectively. A program like XCEPT is very big. It's working across 15 plus geographies. It's been running for more than 6 years. And so it's had impact at so many levels. When I reflect on the way the program has impact and then giving some specific examples, there's the in-depth research, and that work has impact at the time, but also in the longer term. Whether it be RVI's work on Sudan and the borderlands, that's work that had an impact at the time, and it was based on in-depth empirical research in how people think about how we respond to Sudan as the international community, what kind of programming should be done, how. But then there's also the relational element. The researchers that we work with, we build up relationships over time, be that FCDO, national government, civil society, and you go to those people, you send them a quick email, you get them on the phone. That's sometimes actually where we see huge impacts. You can call somebody up when something's happening and they have the credibility based on the research. And then there's been crisis response. So again, when the Sudan war broke out, researchers from XCEPT provided immediate briefing to a whole range of diplomatic actors and all sorts of others on what was happening, how to respond. I think if I was to give one very high level kind of top impact, I think it's this challenging of binaries, licit, illicit, state, non-state. The fact that, at least for the UK, we're a government entity and we see things on a state-by-state basis. Our instruments to respond are as states, legal frameworks, etc. But the nature of conflicts in the areas that XCEPT has been studying, the lens they've studied it from, just reveals a lot of hidden complexity and interconnections between different geographies and issues that kind of fundamentally challenge our definition of what is licit, what's illicit, what is the state, what's non-state, how do these things interconnect? And I think that kind of shedding light on complexity and challenging our binaries has been really important at the big picture level. And I think we're only just seeing the impact of that. The access to an amazing network for FCDO certainly has been one of the most brilliant features of XCEPT. And I think a lesson learned for us is that long-term investment with people on the ground, and that brings me to the second thing I wanted to say, which was around the local research network. And we've been talking a lot about that today. People from the local research network, they have credibility, they have access, they have insight, they have deep historical and cultural knowledge. And I think working with the local research network over time on XCEPT brings fantastic value to understandings of problem sets and conflicts that we're working on. So that is another kind of major lesson learned. I think XCEPT has been very good at being responsive to policy interests, and I think of the programs we fund in research, it's really strong at the policy relevance of its work. Really granular, fantastic research on contexts that we often had a poor understanding of, even at the national level, regional and beyond. But I think the trade-off there is that you can't do everything, and when you're very responsive and then you're also being asked to publish in journals, that puts researchers under a lot of pressure. And I think a lesson learned is that when you're balancing academic impact and policy impact, there are some trade-offs there, and thinking about how to balance that is really important. Credibility and the long-term relationships that actors like FCDO, but also a whole range of others have. And I think because of the investment in those partnerships with XCEPT, we get to kind of call on their advice, bring them into urgent discussions, and I know others also do the same. And one of the other things I wanted to mention was those partnerships creating a platform to bring other actors together around really complex issues. And I know I mentioned shedding light on complexity in my earlier answer as a key contribution of XCEPT, and I think it relates to this question also, that being able to have a long-term partnership with a regionally based organisation means you can peel off those layers of interconnection and complexity and what's going on in the region. And of course, things are dynamic and always changing. So when a crisis happens, I was mentioning Eastern Sudan. RVI platformed a dialogue on Eastern Sudan that brought together Sudanese civic actors, international community, researchers, and used the evidence as a space to dialogue around the response to what's happening. And I think that was one example of the value we get from that kind of partnership.